So we have an amazing lineup of people for you today, and we're actually going to start with one of the most amazing people, and I'm really grateful that we have. There's actually Bob there. That's good. It's reassuring to see that he's actually here, and we have Bob Tassone, who's the incoming global chair for all of EO, all 12,000 members. And he's agreed to be here with us for our EO Vancouver Island event today, and to share with us how he got value, and also share kind of some inspiring words to get us rolling for our brand new season. So go ahead, Bob, you're live.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Tom, and EO Vancouver Island. I'm really excited to be here tonight. I'm doing more of this, and I didn't get a chance to speak at GLC, but I'm getting around on Zoom. And I took a selfie earlier of the Zoom call. I'm collecting all my EO Zoom selfies. But thank you for having me. I'm really excited about EO's new strategy, 4.0. It focuses on 4 pillars of EO's growth, and one of them being 10x growth. Right. And I love this pillar. The pillar really talks about the business trend of personalization. And what I love about that is we're each on a journey. Our journey's personal, and EO now will be in a position to help guide you and support you in that journey. And when we launched this strategy of 10x growth, a couple of people had said, "I don't get it, it doesn't resonate." And I said, the beauty of 10x growth is it's all personal. So what it means to me, and what it might mean to David, what it might mean to Kate, what it might mean to Lucho, and what it might mean to Tom is different. And that's the beauty of what we're creating in EO. It is acknowledging that we're all in this journey together, but on separate paths. And our paths can all coexist, which is really exciting. So I'll share with you 3 quick stories. And the first one being my beginning. My beginning and my first 10X in EO was when I joined EO. My business was not doing well, it was struggling, and I had a lot of self-doubt about my personal leadership skills. And through my EO leadership journey of being a leader and having to lead leaders, I learned that it wasn't necessarily my abilities, it was more my style. And I had to change, and I had to become a different kind of leader. I had to become a servant leader. And I know that it actually took place at some point in time when I was in a staff meeting and an employee looked at me and said, "I don't get this EO thing. I don't know what you all do, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it. You're a much better leader today than you were 2 years ago." So I know that EO has helped transform my leadership style in this journey. The second one, which was more personal, was my family. In my forum, we did an exercise where one of my forum mates sent out an email to my son asking him what he likes about dad and what he doesn't like about dad. It was a little uncomfortable, and it wasn't necessarily a fun thing. To give you a little background, I'm a type A person, if you haven't figured that out. And on every test I take, I test in the 99th percentile for competitiveness. So I'm very competitive. That didn't make for being a very good coach of my son's football and lacrosse team. And when he wrote the letter that he didn't really care for me being his coach, it hit home, and I knew I had to make some changes. So I immediately stopped coaching his team. I became a dad, and I focused on being a dad instead of being a coach. And after that, I really made it a point to not critique what he did, but instead ask him for permission, always waiting a few days for permission to ask him if he wants to know what I thought of the game, what I thought of how he played. And it really improved our relationship dramatically. And I really, after every game, focused on his successes. I didn't go right to you didn't do this right, you didn't do that right. If you did this, I stopped doing that. And it really improved our relationship. So I think, that's how EO 10X my family. The last one I'll share with you is becoming a global citizen. And this one's near and dear to my heart. It's probably the most important thing, and Lucho was with me during this transformation. We were on the same trip together. I was invited to the EO Jordan chapter launch, and it was the height of the Gulf War, and I was a little reluctant. It was my first trip to the Middle East. I didn't know how an American would be perceived, and I was a little concerned, and I was quite, there was definitely some, I'm sure I was scared, and how would that go over and how I would be perceived. And as we went to the event, went to the meeting, got to meet people of all different faiths. We had people that were of Muslim faith, Christian faith. We had some U.S. people that were of Jewish faith. And we all were together. And we had an amazingly beautiful night where we just got to spend time. We were having cocktails, we were sharing stories. And afterwards, probably a couple weeks later, I realized that, wow, I'm the same person as the guy somewhere 3,000, 4,000 miles away from me. We're the same. We have the same dreams, the same wants, the same goals. A better life for our family, a better life for our business, to improve our business, to create to make an impact in our communities. We talked about the same things. And I said, isn't that interesting? EO might be a force of good. And then as I got more and more involved in my leadership journey, I relied on that event more and more, that in that moment in time, we were more alike than we were different. I think EO has given us a platform to drive real change. We're all global citizens. We all can be better, and we can all drive real change. So my challenge to all of you is, let's take our skills, let's take our knowledge, and let's take the gift of EO and pass it on to our friends, our family, and to our communities. More than ever today, our communities need us. They need entrepreneurs to inspire, they need entrepreneurs to invent, and they need entrepreneurs to create. So that's my story, 3 stories quickly of how EO has 10x my life. And I live a great life now because of it. It's so blessed. Thank you for inviting me tonight to share those stories.
That's just great. Okay, so we can ask Bob a couple questions maybe? We've got an extra 9 minutes scheduled for you, Bob. You up for a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about your EO journey? What inspired you to try to become the EO Global Chair?
I won't tell you I drew the last straw. All kidding. It was never a passion. I was never really wanted to be on the global board. I'll share that. Lucho knows the story. He would ask me year over year, "Are you going to sign up for the global board? You're going to apply?" And I was like, "No, I'm not going to." I've done my leadership journey, but somewhere along the way, this whole global citizen thing really made a big impact on me. And I said, I can talk about the things I don't like in the organization, or I can close my mouth and get involved, roll up my sleeves, and do the hard work. And so I chose to do the hard work. And it's easy to poke the shots, but you really gotta, if you really want to drive change, then get involved and be the agent of change.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Can you tell us what you think are the most impactful EO events you've taken part in your EO career so far?
One of the big ones that stands out was we were. I'm drawing a blank on her name. It was Nelson Mandela's assistant, and in Africa, it was a small event, and to hear her speak, Zelda Lagrange, I think that's it, and to hear her tell her story of being a 19-year-old blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl going to work for Nelson Mandela and not understanding why he would choose her. And his comment was so simple, and it gives me so much hope for the world. He said, if we're to be a free nation, we have to include everybody. And so really, it's always been something for me about inclusion. Everybody should feel included always. And that's an important thing to me.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So we have a couple more minutes here. If somebody else in the audience wanted to ask a question, I'll relay it to Bob.
So I hear a lot of times, when people are talking about doing leadership in EO, it's like, oh, I don't have time for that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm too stretched. How did Bob make the transition from that mindset, if he was in that, to I'm getting a lot out of this by serving?
Oh, yeah, okay. I don't know if you could hear that, Bob, but I can repeat the question for you if you like.
I think I got it. I think I could hear most of it. I'll sum it up real easily. I've gotten more out of this journey than I've given. This journey has just been amazing. The people I've gotten to meet, the opportunities I've gotten, the places I've gotten to see, the opportunities, the friendships. I've gotten so much from this organization. I still learn every day, new things, and it's really, I could never put a value on it.
Mm-hmm. Great. We got probably time for one more question for Bob. Is there another question before I come up with something? Got it. There you go. Did you catch that?
I did not catch that.
What would you like to see in your tenure at EO over the next year?
That's a great question. You know, I'd love us to get past this a challenge we're going through with the virus. I would love to see all our members, for us to retain as many members as possible. But I will not. I would be lying if I told you I'm not concerned about next year. We were able to, through unspent funds, able to retain a lot of members this year, and I don't know that as an organization we'll be in position to do that. So I want to find ways to create values and find ways that we can deliver value in EO so that every member felt like they had an amazing year. And you know, there's some big projects we're working on that I'm excited about. I'm also excited about our diversity and inclusion. As I like to say, I'm Italian. I like to cook, I like to eat, and I like to drink wine. And everybody should feel comfortable sitting at my table with me having wine and eating pizza. You know, that's the kind of environment, that's the kind of organization I want for EO.
Great. That's a great way to segue. So thank you so much for your time, Bob. It's a real honor to have you here.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You can feel free to hang out with us, or your responsibilities are done. So speaking of renewals, I don't know if you heard that Vancouver Island actually had the highest renewal rate in Canada, which is give or take. And I'd also like to call attention to this amazing book you all have on your table here, which is the first time we've ever done this. And by we, I mean Tom and Bessie. That this is the survival guide for EO Vancouver Island for this year. And it lays out a few things. And it shows you the board. If you're interested in who's responsible for what, there's a picture of all the board members in case you don't know them. There's also, I think it's actually a very important document in here that lays out the different ways you can get value from EO. You know, if you're the person who really wants to dive deep and get value from Forum, well, there's a path for you. If you want to focus on learning and educating yourself and taking the opportunity to upgrade your skills and figure out that it's a different game than you thought, then there's a path for you. If you're interested in developing your leadership skills, you know, I can tell you that leading peers you have no authority over, if you get good at that, you'll be damn good at leading when you do have authority. And so there's amazing opportunities within EO to take on roles at the chapter level, at the Canada level, and even beyond the Canada level. And it's all just sitting there waiting for you. You just have to take advantage of it. And it's basically free education that will make you way, way better within your company and lead with just a lot more confidence, right? If you're interested in networking, meeting a lot of people, guess what? There's 14,000 people that will take your call. Every single freaking one of them will return your call because they know that you share the values of the organization and you're not trying to take advantage of them. You're not calling with a secret agenda to try to sell them something, whatever. So that is not to be taken lightly. You know how hard it is to develop most relationships to the level where people trust your agenda, right? So that just happens automatically. They call it intimacy. Cute, eh? I wish I invented that term, but it's kind of normal EO talk. So the next person I'd like to introduce is Rob Murray, he's a very engaged member from Southwest Ontario. He's served as the chapter president, had an extremely successful tenure as a chapter president in Southwest Ontario, which is a pretty new chapter. And as with all new chapters, it just takes a lot of energy to get it sort of up and running and balanced and so on. And subsequent to that, he decided to take on learning just because he's a glutton for punishment. So we have Rob here. So Rob, you have the floor for 10 whole minutes to tell us the story of how you get value and maybe answer a couple questions. Are you muted?
No, I'm good. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. Intimacy. It's almost as cute as David Ryan. That's great. Hey, buddy. Yeah, no, seriously, thanks so much for, asking me to be a part of this. Not that you asked. I think I got more told. That's kind of the nature of EO. So here I am. I could probably go on for a long time with, how I've gotten a ton of value out of EO. So I don't want to, take everybody's time too much. I'll see if I can keep this to 10 minutes. I joined EO when I had 3 kids under 2 years old. So I had twins and a son. He was just about two, and then twin infants, and then decided to join EO for some crazy reason. And my business had actually doubled twice over in less than 12 months. And I was going through that whole, like, what's the storming, norming, was it, I don't even know, there's yeah, and then performing, right? So twice over with the company. There was a ton of stress in my life, and I was at a bachelor party, and I was talking to somebody. We were at, like, we're going to do a golf tournament, and I was talking to one of my buddies. I thought it was a fireside chat, so I'm next to a fire, just as an FYI. That's why it's flickering here. Yeah, and I was talking with my buddies. I was like, yeah, I'm really stressed out. It was Saturday night, and on Monday I had to fire somebody who had been with us for 5 years, and it was kind of eating at me. And he just turned to me and said, dude, we're here to golf. Shut up. All right. So I guess I can't really talk to you about this right now because you don't want to hear it. And when I joined EO, and I had our first social, it was an axe throwing event in Southwest Ontario, and I was just saying, hey, like, what's like, is anybody else experiencing this? Talking to their friends about stuff that's actually messing with you, and they're just like not wanting to hear it. Family, same deal. And it echoed through the group pretty quickly, and then all of a sudden we were talking about how someone else had to fire somebody and how they were really stressed out. And all of a sudden I kind of found this group of folks, and EO was, I joined EO essentially to be a part of a group of people that wanted to level up. And I didn't know, I kind of went in blind. I signed up through the website. I didn't talk to anybody. I had a couple of mentors in my past who'd said I should join EO, and I didn't qualify, so I hadn't. And then on a January evening, I decided to sign up. And then all of a sudden I realized I was around a whole bunch of people that kind of got me. I was kind of around my tribe, and that probably resonates with a couple of folks around this room, and physically in Vancouver Island or virtually, across the country. And so then Scott was like, hey, you're going to speak tonight about the the 10x value membership. And okay, thanks, Scott. That's kind of how he rolls. And so there was just kind of 3 things that stuck out to me that I wanted to share with the group. But first, I know there's a bunch of people in a room right now, but there's also a bunch of people virtually. Can I be so bold to ask people to chat how long they've been members for? And then Scott, could you just give me a sense of what the average
in the room? I just happen to know everybody, so I would say average is probably about 8 years.
Okay, sweet. So and then in the chat, David's 18. David said he's in 18 years. He started EO when he was born. That's good. You look good, man. You look good. It's all that maple syrup beer. 1.5 years. Okay, so I mean, I'm probably more junior than most. I've been a part of EO just 3 years. But one of the things I realized in EO is that, well, I didn't understand when I joined, but now I understand more than ever. And actually, if there was a cascading message that I could get to the organization, it would be that, we run this organization. And there seems to be this weird perception that EO Global is like this organization that exists without EO, and it's just not the case. And so the more involved, the more we get out. And I didn't quite get that. In my forum training, I got it's a carry your own bags organization. You're responsible for the value you get out of this thing, which is kind of part of, the way I run my life. And the more I put into things, the more I get out. But I didn't quite understand EO Global and the whole relationship of, that part of the organization and all the chapters. And I actually had a really, really shit onboarding. I wasn't part of a forum for like 6 or 7 months. I had emailed people several times for the constitutions within the forums, and I was just kind of on an island. But my business partner joined EO Toronto at the same time I joined EO Southwest Ontario, and he was having a great experience. And so My membership kind of started in February, and then I hadn't been to Forum. I had only been to one social event, and I got dinged for another $5,000 in June. And I was just like, holy crap, what the heck is going on here? But I realized that it was just because our chapter was it was in a tough spot. And if I wanted to make the value that I wanted out of the whole thing, I had to get involved and be part of the change. And so I decided through, some twisting of arms and some documentation that had no meaning and a promise of a bottle of whiskey, which I still have yet to receive. And I think I've actually given one to Booker, ended up reluctantly agreeing to become a membership chair at Southwest Ontario. Nice. And that was a really cool opportunity for me because, I had no time because I had a business that was doubling itself essentially every 6 months. And it wasn't like we were small. We were, we weren't big or anything like that, but we were like 2 million and then 3 million and then, 4 million. And we were growing our team really quickly. And I had, these infants and a 2-year-old at home and a wife experiencing postpartum. And it was really, there's no kids around here. It was really fucking tough. But because I had people around me that understood what it was like to go through tough times, I was a bit normalized by it. And it really helped me kind of wade the waters and understand that, I'm around other people that get what we're going through. And so the first thing around this was, EO is what we make it, period. So if something isn't cool, something isn't good, we got to step up and make the change. And it's cliche to say, but it's not cliche to do. And so my first value out of the whole thing was stepping up to actually make the change that I wanted to see myself, because I wanted the value that I saw my business partner getting out of the whole thing. And by being on the board and as a membership chair, I got the opportunity to start making some change in our chapter. Through that, I got asked to be the president of our chapter. And that was probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. I got to meet the leaders of leaders across the Americas in my first president's meeting in Cabo San Lucas. I got to meet leaders of North America in my second president's meeting in Arizona. And it's just been the most rich environment for building the best relationships I've ever made in my life. And David, I would include you in one of those relationships. And so, only through the opportunity of stepping up was I given the opportunity to meet fantastic people. Not to say not everyone in EO is fantastic, but I can tell you when you go to a president's meeting, it's next level. Not to mention the GLCs that come along with it. And then through that, I'm actually part of a cross-country forum called 86.4, which has people from coast to coast, literally from Vancouver Island all the way to Halifax, and now South Africa with Rich Mulholland joining the forum. And we have our forum tomorrow, which I think I'll be actually be attending while I'm kayaking down a river at one of our EO events in Southwest Ontario, which is kind of neat. But, the idea of the more I put into this whole thing, the more I get out exponentially has been something I'll never forget. The other thing I wanted to mention was, I don't know how many of you are in forums that do mystery retreats, but man, that's a cool way to do a retreat. So we all pony up $2,500. We give it to the person who's planning the retreat, who's going to be next year's moderator. And we don't hear anything until 48 hours before we're going to leave. We get a packing list, and we probably have to provide some passport information prior, but it's a really neat exercise. And it's probably one of the biggest takeaways I've got from running a forum properly or really well, because it puts a lot of pressure on the person planning the retreat because they don't have any collaboration. And so they put a lot of pressure on themselves to make it awesome. And I've just had lifelong memories from the 2 so far I've been on, and our 3rd's coming up this year, which I don't quite understand where it's going to be yet, even though it's crazy times and he's looking for collaboration. We said, no, it's mystery. You got to figure it out. So mystery retreats and forum, I think, is awesome. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was just around this idea of when stepping up in leadership, whether it's a board position, whether it's a moderator-elect, this is the best place to practice leadership with no risk. Like, we're working with budgets that aren't our money. They're not our business. We don't, if we mess the whole thing up, it really means nothing. And what Scott was saying earlier about, if you can find a way to lead peers that are all stupid driven, awesome people from, a president position in an EO chapter, well, you've really mastered what leadership is all about, because it's nothing to do with authority. It's all about influence. It's all about support. And all the lessons that I've learned in leadership really just kind of set me up to figure out how to do it properly when I got into EO as president. And doing that was game changing, life changing in the way I approached leading people. Mindset as I'm typically a natural kind of as a leader as opposed to a facilitator, and the direction isn't necessarily the best way to go, because I'm not sure about you guys, but most people don't like being told what to do. And,
very true. Right. You've used up your time,
but
Rob.
Okay, and so the last thing I just want to say is that getting outside my comfort zone was the biggest one, and Scott Phillips was one of the biggest contributors to that, and speaking at One Canada really messed me up, but it was the best thing I've ever done in my EO experience, so thank you, Scott.
That's right. One Canada in Halifax last year. Rob was the star attraction. Okay, so the next person we have is David Ryan. I don't know if I have do you have a camera on me anymore? Yeah.
Hey, Scott, I actually have a presentation.
And David comes to us from Ottawa, past Ottawa, in fact, from what I understand. And so when I asked David, would he be willing to speak at our 10X event, he said, yeah, absolutely, be happy to do it. Who is this? So I think that tells you a little bit of something about David Ryan. So David, take it away.
Very well. I do have actually a presentation. Am I able to do a share screen here?
There you go.
Can you confirm you got it?
Oh my God, you made a whole slide deck for us.
Yeah, I just want to one-up Rob, Rob Murray, really. That was my goal. Pleasure to be here, guys. All right, very quickly, David from Embrun, a small French town in Ontario. Very lucky to have been one of the founders of the EO chapter in Ottawa. I still raise my kids and my beautiful wife in this small town and enjoy, obviously, traveling. This is my business career. So the ups and downs, I actually started in EO somewhere in here. So none of this could have happened without all the learning that went throughout this process and the hardships and all the fun. So, tidy bit about my company. Expertech is a construction company that does 24-hour restoration and small contracts in hospitals, school boards. We're building another COVID center right now, triage center in Ottawa. We're really in the thick of it.
Oh, we faded out.
Are definitely essential. So, I was told to ask 3 things, but I actually have 4. So here's the first one. Reach out to members directly. It has worked for me. I would say 90% of the time I get a response back. The first one I can think of, the most largest impact as of late, Melanie Beauchamp, which is a Phoenix member. I was working on a bonusing system for my project managers. And she said, well, I have a guy who does exactly what you do. Why don't you talk to him? So I decided to fly down to Phoenix, meet this individual. It was his 3rd pass at this bonusing system, and he finally got it right after creating a shitload of havoc in his company. I just copied the damn thing. I was so happy. When I presented it to my staff, what they ended up, my project manager said, no, how do we know this is good? Well, there's a guy in Phoenix. He tried it 3 times, and now he figures he's got it figured out, and that's the good one. Oh, okay. And that's how it went. So I just basically went there, I gave him some information on my part, and I met another EO member in Phoenix who fully grasped that I do not want to become a general contractor doing large contracts because it just didn't look like fun when he was talking about it. It didn't make any sense to me. So reach out to members directly. This is actually Rob Murray. We ended up doing mountain biking at Mel's house. Anyway, it's a passion of mine, and I decided to add the passion with regards to the business story. This is the latest one. So this guy, Nick, is actually from Durban, South Africa. And my question, which I posed on Facebook, is I want to build a mountain bike trail, and I have to bid 8 kilometers of trail. How much is it going to cost me? Is there somebody in the EO who has that information? And this guy, he's actually a sugarcane farmer. Let me hold on here. This is his website. He's a sugarcane farmer. There's so many people on his trails that he decided to build 375 kilometers of trails. So he told me all the ins and outs of that industry and how it goes. And it ends up that the cost for a mountain bike trail is about $19,200. And the 2 other bidders were about $100 more than me. So we ended up building that trail, and it got finished last week, and it's pretty awesome. If you're nearby, come on over. So reach out to members directly. They will actually answer through the Facebook, through the Slack channel, or just reach out and find out in which chapter somebody that you know that actually has that specific question that you're trying to answer, rather than trying to find it yourself. All right, number 2, undress yourself again. Not literally, but when you get to an EO forum, you do have to undress yourself. Then you get comfortable in your little bubble, your buddies, girls and gals. Break it all open. Go find another forum. There is, to me, it was the original one was the EO Insignia forum. That got washed out. It became the EO Bridges forum. Amazing amount of value. You get in. It's a 2-day program, once per quarter. It's restarting. We're all online right now. But you get to learn so much, as in the same day when you did your first forum with your first group, when you knew nothing about them and you knew nothing about their businesses. Make that times 5. Industry roundtables. My last discussion was exactly what your margin was in the type of business, construction business that you were in. This is all across Canada. There was one industry, one construction type of business I want to get in. You know what? Not gonna happen. I don't make any money. I don't need to spend all this money to know that I wouldn't be making any money. No, there's an EO member already who's not making any money. So how beautiful is that?
David, can you talk into your microphone a little closer?
Yeah, how's that?
Yeah, great.
Hold on here. I got this Rode mic. Here we go. Deep dive into the extra learning. So to me, it all started with scaling up. And then from scaling up, it went to this guy, John O'Brien, you're going to hear about. He was on EOS. So I was going consistently to his place to learn about his scaling up. Then he switched to something called EOS. Then he asked me to actually moderate a quarterly session for his own business. I'm like, I don't even know EOS. Just read the 2 books, David. You're going to be fine. Like, whatever. You want to pay me to do this? Your loss. So I read the 2 books, but most of all, when I sat in that meeting and as I was moderating it, John O'Brien was solving issues on a weekly basis, and I was solving issues on a quarterly basis. It had a major impact on how fast we would solve issues and move forward in our own business. So never paid any commission to John O'Brien, and you don't have to with EO members. That's the way it goes. After that, I ended up at the EMP program, Entrepreneur Masters program, and that's where I met Kate, which is somewhere down that stream. All of a sudden, the instances of EOS and scaling up, running into those programs, just brought it to level 10 by the teachers that they brought, most of all by the group, the people that they brought in. I got to undress again, just because of the amount of EO people I met, again, learning about so many other businesses. It was just still fantastic. From there, within EO, on the website, there is a learning platform that nobody knows about. The last course that I took, which one of the speakers is Greg Crabtree, called Revitalizing Your Finances. And if you hate your numbers, go take that course. You're going to start falling in love with them as it tells a story. It goes back to Alan Smith's The Power of 1%. And I thought I had, fair knowledge. No, not even close. But I actually did like the course. All right. You know what? I did add the last one just for fun. So path of leadership. If you do get involved with your own chapter, you will find a guy like Kelly Youngdale who runs the most fantastic L10 meetings, and then you'll be David Ryan right here trying to push a square. There's some guy within your own board who's made that square a round object. So it pisses you off right away, but eventually you get over it. Your ego is going to get over it, and you just, again, rip off and duplicate whatever that guy's doing. That's it for me. Questions?
I think we're right at time. So you nailed your 10 minutes perfectly. Thank you so much, David. That was totally brilliant. I'm totally grateful that you took the time to prepare and that you're so dynamic and your insights are fantastic. So let me know if I can return the favor sometime. Okay, the next person we're going to get to hear from is a good friend of mine, Kate Holden, out of Winnipeg, and I believe she's here. I saw her earlier. Kate is a remarkable woman, and she runs a wine bar in Winnipeg, as one does. And it's because she made too much money modeling, so she figured she'd just try some other entrepreneurial thing. So Kate, why don't you tell, and Kate has also got 3 jobs similar to myself. She's kind of my boss in EO. So Kate, why don't you tell us your stories and how you get value from the organization?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And Scott, I'm definitely not the boss. I think I'm just happy to be able to work with you. But my journey in EO started similar to a lot of people on this chat. Someone, told me it's time to join. And the reality is that I really thought that I didn't have the time. I couldn't make the time. My business was growing and changing, and I just didn't want to. I didn't want to carve out the time. So I finally did. I went to my first regional conference in Edmonton, and I have to tell you, I finally thought that I found my people. I spent so much time thinking that I was the misfit maybe, and that my vision was too much, too excessive. I went too far, and I realized very quickly that no, maybe I'm just an entrepreneur and I'm just not spending my time with the right group of people. So I really made a huge shift in my life. Like I do everything because I am excessive in nature. I jump both feet right in. And so that first conference was everything to me. And from there, I went into my path of leadership on a chapter board, which I learned all the ins and outs of. If anyone that knows me or has heard me have the tattoo of my EO, that was sort of my path in the beginning. So I learned very quickly how I could get involved on the chapter board. And it was truly a gift of just, I can't even tell you the return on investment that it has for me, because what I can give back to this organization is not even a quarter of what it's given to me. And jumping into that sort of path of leadership on the board, started with the chapter board, and now I'm on the regional council this year, and it still continues. I continue to grow and learn in a different way. I really want to talk a little bit about my EO, because that's how I started in this organization. Because as you guys know, EO offers a multitude of products. We have like 90 some odd products, and we don't know how to navigate that as new members. And we're sort of just kind of lost in the shuffle, and we don't get it. We're not sure. And it depends on our navigators and our laws and our, there's all sorts of avenues and paths that we can join our forum. But really for me, I learned very quickly that my EO has 5, premier groups that we can join: families of my EO, under 35, women of EO, the Deal Exchange, the My EO Industries group. And those are just the premier groups. And then we get into the smaller groups, which is a whole other thing, because, we don't like to do anything simple. We like to have a whole magnitude of everything for everyone, which I think is great. But I learned very quickly that I could become a champion of events in smaller groups. And what the key takeaway for me was that I learned that I could be in smaller groups, which was less intimidating, and get to know other EO members and have really great conversations that could really change my business and impact my life in a significant way. So I spent a lot of time in that realm. In the last couple of years, it's still under my platform on the council. I still want to drive it, own it, support it. I would challenge all of you, if you're not involved either in the path of leadership or into the My EO mix, I would love you guys to sign up for the My EO Matrix, because it's smaller groups, experience-based, for members, designed by members. It's a really great experience. And I feel like it got my feet wet, and it led me into that role. Of course, like anything in EO, you don't stop there, because why would you stop being a member and then going to a regional conference and then join a path of leadership and get on a chapter board? So then you have to go to the regional council, become a My EO member. And then what do you do then? You go to the Regional Leadership Academy, which is exactly life-changing. They put you on a mountain, make you wear plaid, which I don't typically do, make you completely uncomfortable, out of your comfort zone. You meet a bunch of great new people that you never thought you would ever know or identify with. You grow in a way as a leader. I can't even describe the impact it's had in my family, in my friendships, in my business. My business has changed exponentially. And why would you stop there? Because, a leadership academy is really great. So when you come back drooling from that and you want to make significant life change in your business, your life, your family, shake everything up, Then you decide to go to EMP, which is the Entrepreneurial Master's Program, where I got to meet David as well. And you decide to learn and grow in a whole other way. And you learn about bottlenecks and branding and how do you 10x your business. And you know, there's a gazillion dollars available to make money at. So why don't you do better? Why aren't you a better leader? How can you do better? How can you grow? How can you encourage people? How can you inspire people? It's your gift. It's your ability to do that. How do you evolve and how do you learn and how do you grow? And so after 5 days at a leadership academy, 5 days at EMP, within, I would say, a 30-day time frame, I came back. I don't think anyone knew who I was. It took some time to kind of break it down and say, okay, these are the 3 things I'm going to implement from the Leadership Academy. And these are the 3 things I'm going to implement from EMP. I'm going to start here and I'm going to change and do things differently, because my business was just at a plateau and it wasn't growing at the rate it could have been. And so I took that opportunity at that time to make a significant change. I changed my perspective. I changed how I handle people. I had a different vision. I was more intentional about my goals. Everything I did was more intentional. And like, I just spent more time. I was more present. I wasn't always on my phone. I made moments count. My leadership journey has been continually evolving, and it continues to. Every day, every meeting, I learn something from, whether it's someone that's here tonight, or I've definitely learned a lot since I've even been on this call. It continues. And one thing I've definitely learned is that I'm committed to being different than I was yesterday, changing my business and evolving. Obviously, we're in changing times, and my business significantly has changed. I was weighted very high. I have a wine store, essentially. I sell 60% to restaurants, 40% retail. When COVID hit, the restaurants closed for 3 months. I was able to bridge the gap by selling more to retail and figuring out the dynamics and really closing that gap to the point where my business is up. I mean, it is a pandemic. We're drinking more, probably. It's a good and bad thing, probably better for me. But we were able to look at and identify the gaps in our business and figure out how we could learn and grow and change. And I can only attribute that to the learnings that I've gotten from my EMP classmates, from the speakers that we had there, from the conversations that I've had with this group, to the experts in the council that I get to work with, to the MyEO groups that are small. I have a really great, Tom Benson's, and I was in the Regional Leadership Academy with him, and I have a really great RLA forum in a bond that I don't think that I could identify unless you were left on a mountain with a bunch of people, like the movie Alive. Like, I kind of want to make that similarity, because that's how I felt in the moment. Because I've never been on snowshoes since maybe they were like wood, not metal, and left with a backpack, water, a granola bar. And
they ate each other in that movie.
I know, but I felt pretty close. I was like, I was not sure if we were coming down from that mountain. Okay. I was very worried. I mean, come on. I don't think I was dressed properly. Let's just say that. But you know what I learned the most about myself is that I'm okay to be alone. I'm okay to be uncomfortable. And I actually learned something from it. And I'm a different person coming out of it. And that's my story. I'm forever grateful to be here, to have met all of you, and for this incredible journey. I think we'll have this conversation in a couple of years and we'll all be different again, and our businesses will be different. And that's what EO is all about. And that's really, for me, the true leadership gift of this group and all of you. So
Great. Thank you so much. All right, our next speaker is Luis Lucho Chasi. He's actually from Costa Rica, and I had never met him before trying to put this event together. It's a little weird, echoey for me. So he appeared actually on a video for the rebranding of EO, and I thought, oh, this is a pretty cool guy. And so I reached out to him, and it's just better. And so he was very gracious to take my call. And then he subsequently let me know he'd actually been a global board member for 4 years. And so he's a very accomplished person within EO. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Lucho Chasi from Costa Rica.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this amazing event. I only have 10 minutes. It'll probably take me 2 hours just to tell you about my EO story, but yeah, I'm gonna have to make it short and make it all fit in 10 minutes. Anyway, so I've been with EO for 16 years now. 2004, I joined. As soon as I joined, my forum buddy tells me, the following year, tells me, you know what, okay, I would like you to be part of my board. There's only one condition. You have to come with me to GLC. Back when we had the 2 GLCs. I don't know if you remember that, but anyway, 2 GLCs. This one took place in Washington, D.C. So I went with him. And from that point on, I was hooked on EO leadership. So 1 year into the organization, 15 years ago, and I was hooked. And then I saw, the global board up there standing on the whole global board, giving the speeches and all. And I said, you know what, how cool would it be to, at a certain point in time, to be able to get there? So, as part of my POL, path of leadership, I served at a local level, all the way to becoming president, served at the regional level, all the way to becoming regional director for Latin America and the Caribbean. And then I served in different global leadership positions. It took me 11 years to come to get to 2015 when I had to make up my mind and decide if I wanted to apply to the global board. And I actually served for 3 years, although it might have seemed like 5. No, I'm kidding. It was amazing. What a great experience. But anyway, so 2015, my business was doing, and this is where the big lesson and what I really got out. So it took me 11 years to understand why I became a member of EO, and why I served as well. So in 2015, my business was doing as bad as it has ever been before. Close to maybe not having a business at certain point in time. And then that was my time to apply for the global board, interestingly enough. So I come and, I come to I have filled out my application, come to my house, and I said, you know what, this has to be a family decision. So I gathered my family, a wife and 2 boys, and kind of had a conversation with them about me applying for the board. And in their own different ways, all of them kind of let me know at that particular moment in time how important EO was for me, how important EO leadership was for me. My wife even went as far as telling me, I don't know, what would you do if you didn't have EO leadership in your life? And let me tell you, I had done everything else before. Again, all leadership positions, Global Leadership Academy, attended, EO universities, regional events, and so on and so forth. And that really, kind of made me understood that I had to do this. I had to apply. I had a right to give it my best if I was allowed to serve, and do something that was much bigger, and work for something that was much bigger than myself, myself personally, my business, and that's what I did. But then, so again, for me, EO until that moment was all about leadership, and I considered maybe forum and some of the other added values that EO provides kind of secondary to leadership. But then that same year, interestingly enough, although I love my forum buddies, and they're I've been with the same forum since the very beginning, as soon as they became aware of how bad my business was doing, the forum as a whole, one way or another, they stepped up and said, you know what, Lucho, we're here for you. And let me tell you that just because of my forum buddies, I do have a business today, and it's thriving. And I believe it took me a few years to kind of turn it around. There's still some nuts and bolts that I have to take care of, but it's thanks to my forum that I do have a business as of today. So interestingly enough, again, 11 years into my membership is when I received the big gift, as Bob said, the big gift of EO. And just because of those 2 experiences, becoming aware of how important EO leadership has been or had been for me at that particular moment in time, And the support I got from my forum is that I'm committed for life to this organization, and I'll be a member for as long as I qualify, and I'll be with my forum for as long as they want me to be part of it. And to the point where I rolled off the board last year, June 30th, 2019. And then I was invited by another forum buddy of mine that is our current president. And he told me, Lucho, would you consider coming and helping me, at the local board? We know that you serve at the global level, blah, blah, blah. But, we would like you to come and just help us a little bit here locally. We're struggling, we're losing members. And you know what? I just felt that compelling urge, if you will, to go back to EO leadership. And now I'm serving on my local board as my members, as the membership chair. And all I can tell you is, that is my cup of tea. And I'll be willing to serve EO in whatever capacity I can, forever and ever. I also do strategy summits. I facilitate strategy summits. And again, as Bob mentioned before, I've certainly gotten much more out of EO than I have put in so far. So that's a little bit of my EO, curriculum, if you will, or story. And I don't know if that met your expectations. Hopefully it did.
Okay, what would you say was the biggest impact of EO on your business?
You know what? So at a certain point in time, a lot of people told me that I was crazy in applying for the global board just because of the time commitment and that it was gonna take, and that was gonna end up finishing up or killing my business. And interestingly enough, my from that point on, and although I had that time commitment and I have to put a lot of time into my global board service, interestingly enough, my business turned around. And I believe it had to do a lot with just, sharing my story, gathering experiences, not only from board members, but then, just because of when you serve at the global board, you get to travel a lot, you get to meet a lot of people around the world, and just, sharing your story and hearing what they did in similar situations and so on and so forth, I believe kind of got me I got a lot of feedback and that allowed me, while serving EO, to just turn it around.
Perfect. So it was the turnaround of your business. The fact that you have a business now, you credit EO for that?
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time, Lucho. It's been an honor to have you with us tonight.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
All right. The next guest is a big star in the local entrepreneurial scene, is Tom Moran. So he's holding this whole event together with Chewing Gum, and so why don't you come on up here and tell us your story.
Woo, thanks. Yeah, I was just trying to think about a couple of unique things that about what EO's done for me and what EO is, and I thought about. I was thinking back to a decade ago when I got my first shop here in Victoria, and the feeling when you're bullshitting people, right? Maybe I'm more used to it than some of you, but there's that feeling as an entrepreneur, right? You're always busy being the salesman. You're always busy selling everybody. You're always busy holding everything up in the air. You're always busy keeping it all together, right? And so there's this internal pressure of what's going on inside of you and the external world, right? And there's kind of myself a decade ago, there were very much two of me. And I remember this feeling early on in this business where I had this pain down my back. And it was like me being kind of like pulled apart. And I was super lucky that there was this guy, Scott Phillips, wandered into my life and probably recognized the guy who was like treading water here. And Scott would like show up and he would check in on me every so often and take me to lunch and slowly like reeled me in and got me into EO. But as soon as I got into Forum, right, it was a process. But what happened is that there was this place where I could go where that internal me could come out, right? There was a safe, trusting place where those two worlds kind of started to merge, right? And that little Venn diagram of like Tom, right? And I think it's a super long process, but you know, what's happened for me is that, you know, I learned this world of super trust, right? This world of super trust that started in Forum for me. And so that world of super trust started to grow. Like, so people outside of my forum, I would share that same level of trust with, right? Hey, you're EO. And I could drill down and like have that real conversation with them. And I remember I met a supplier of ours in Vancouver one day, and I found out he was EO, and I was like, oh my God. And you know, it was like hugging him, and his like employees were there like, what's going on here? And you know, and that world just got bigger and bigger, right? And so there are these people across the country that I've got this super trust with. And, you know, I think my whole life has started to merge where I have really very low patience now for relationships that don't operate on that level, right? And so I look for it and I want that. And when I don't get it, it's like, this isn't a relationship that's worth having, you know? And so, you know, I remember when I was pitching SAPs on joining EO, and I was trying to explain this like community of trust that we have, and it's only more recently that it's come together for me. It's like, oh my God, yeah, this is a real big thing. This community of trust isn't just among us. It changes. It changed me. I don't know about you. You guys might be weird, but and that was profound. And so I mean that's I think what's special about EO, but it's what it has done for me. It's really, I am much closer to being myself all day long. And I don't get that thing in my back so much anymore, right? So anyway.
Can you talk about your business journey and how you've transformed your business?
Well, I mean, there are a whole pile of super significant steps for me along the way that, like, I remember my first like staff mutiny where somebody like said, Tom, read 5 dysfunctions of a team, you know, and that was like a huge moment of like, oh my God, right? That transformed the way things ran. And I mean, there's so many, you know, whether it was learning events or books I was recommended to read or stuff that I was exposed to. But over time, like for me, you know, I recognize how like, oh yeah, this business that I'm in isn't really the business I want to be in, or it isn't happening the way I want it to be. And God damn it, I'm changing it, right? And hey, this marriage that I'm in, you know what? That's not the one I want. I'm changing that, right? And so, yeah, I mean, I recently sold off half my business and I've changed that. I've started another software startup right now, and it's yeah, it's way closer to being me, that's for sure.
We have time for a
John.
Where did you learn to dance, buddy?
I learned to dance from Scott. Isn't it obvious? If there's some time at the end, we could demo, I think. Right, thanks.
Awesome. Okay, we're even slightly ahead of time, which means the next person can go slightly over. We're going to have Yarden come talk to us.
Good evening, everyone. So after all the high-ranked guys that were talking here, I'm representing the back rows, the simple soldiers in EO. So I'm starting my third year in EO, and I actually joined EO because I moved to Victoria 5 years ago, and I happened to meet a guy named Peter Thomas that I think you know, and I started to do business with him, and I asked him to be my mentor. He said, okay, but you have to join EO. I said, what is EO? After he freaked out, I don't know what is EO, he told me, if you want me to be your mentor, you have to join EO. So I happened to find my way to Scott and join EO. And after I joined a forum of new guys, my forum collapsed. So I found myself in first year in EO without a forum. I said, okay, but I'm committed to being EO. Let's find some value here that is not just forum. And thankfully, Scott and Tom asked me to do GSEA, actually volunteered me. Say, you are the new GSEA guy in town. I said, okay, what is GSEA? They explained. I said, wonderful. And actually, it was really, really wonderful. Because my concept of giving back, I don't like just to contribute money. I prefer to contribute also value to my giving back. And I found an amazing platform of mentoring students. And through this competition, I happen to judge now almost every business competition, student business competition in town, in order to recruit members to GSA. And I like it so much because I found out that what I have after 20 years of doing business, it's so valuable for them. So just 1 hour talking with me about things that for me are obvious can change the way they will do their business. So I find so much satisfaction. And I think EO is a platform also on giving back that you can find your way and decide how I want to give back and look for it in EO, and you will find your way. And thankfully, also one of these students, I'm now the lead investor in his round, and I hope that we will do 100x on the venture, right? But that's my wife is claiming that even if I go to walk in the garden, I come back with a business idea. But I want to talk with you about some other out of chapter value that I extract from EO. So once I found myself out of the forum, I said, okay, let's see what is out there. And I found out that there is amazing amount of amazing events going on. And I decided I will do at least 2 out of chapter events per year. And this was really high-end events. Like for many, many years, I wanted to do the Singularity University. And then I saw, oops, 2 years ago, it was in San Francisco with EO. First, it was half the price that I can do it without EO, already good savings. Already I earned that year fees, but also it was with all the EO capsulation of all the people that was there, all the focus of entrepreneurship, and all even the social event. I took a balloon and we landed in Napa Valley, and we opened a cellar of amazing wine and spent a wonderful Saturday morning as part of the event. I also joined here with, they mentioned RLA. So I also joined RLA of Canada, and I spent more than 12 years in the Israeli army. I thought, like, I did so many training on leadership. What can I learn here? So I came a little bit skeptical, and I said, it's more maybe I can learn about the North American culture a little bit more. So let's do it. And it's actually humbled me. I came back and I found not only top-notch speakers, but also people that doing much better than what I'm doing, the same thing that I want to do. So it's so much to learn from these people. I was very grateful for that. And there are some other events that I did. So I think going out and see an event outside the chapter, very valuable for me. But even as a person that live in Victoria but don't do much business in Victoria, it's a platform. I happen to need an HR person in Seattle. So through EO, I contact the chapter, and they gave me the best HR consultant in Seattle. Like, to find him myself and open the door and talk with the partner there and etc. will take me much longer. And also there are specific platform. I think it was mentioned before about the MyEO, but also very specific industry-related forums. So I decided to do now a multifamily real estate business. I'm not from this business, but I can find a specific platform that is people that are doing this business sharing information between them. That's a great opportunity. Scott mentioned here the Canadian ventilator, so I'm trying to take it to be global venture, not only Canadian venture. And apparently one of the guys I met in RLA from Malaysia is related. So I gave him a call and I started to build my network in Malaysia. So I very much agree that it's for me, there is an interesting platform out there. It's for me to go out, explore this platform and find how can I bring myself the specific value that I want to take from it. Also, I don't know if you're familiar with the EO deal network. So I need to raise $55 million if someone wants to invest, talk with me. But I'm trying to do so also through the EO network, the specific deal network. And I think there are several people of us that are trying to raise capital. This is a platform that basically gives you access, and I'm investment banker in my background, is giving you a global access for people that want to invest, and maybe they want to invest in something that you want. But the different than regular bankers network is what was the trust that you mentioned. You call a guy, or he's calling you, you have this kind of the first discussion that you don't have to build this from scratch. There is some foundation there. And I found it very, very valuable when you want to do business with people you don't know. So that's my experience. And if you have any question, I will take questions. And don't try to be GSCA chair. This position is taken.
So Yarden, your journey in your first year of EO was probably different than many people's. What advice would you give to someone in the first 1 or 2 years of EO?
You know, we have a terrible website. Seriously, sorry to say that the app and I don't know if the chairman is still listening. We are terrible. The app and the website are not good. So you have to work to find your value. There is so much out there. It's not easy to find it because it's not so accessible, but there is so much value out there. You have to find out what you take. It's so easy just to take the forum. The forum is wonderful. I found my forum and I'm very happy with this forum. But there is so much other than the forum, but you have to think what value I want and go out and look for it and see if you can find it. If not, move on to find it out of EO. But I think a lot of what you want to do, you can find some value within EO.
More questions for Yarden?
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that was totally interesting. You never really, you think you know somebody, and then what do you know? They come out with some more stuff. So we're actually about 5 minutes ahead of time. I've never pulled that off ever in an EO event before. Woo! All right, so our next speaker is Tara Kelly. She's the learning chair in Calgary, and that's how I came to know her until I actually looked up her background. She's a total kick-ass entrepreneur in marketing software, which maybe she'll tell us about today or not. But ladies and gentlemen, I give you Tara Kelly.
Hi. Thanks, everybody. Scott, thanks for the intro. We are a company called Splice Software, and I founded it. I'm getting a little line there. Did you guys get a weird rating, or you're good? Thumbs up. Okay. We started it 14 years ago. We send automated and live calls, texts, emails, and most importantly, we capture and manage opt-in. We're pretty psyched about the world these days because if anything is exploding, it's consumer rights. And so between our offices in Calgary and Chicago and a couple satellite partnership resellers in other parts of the globe, it works really nice. So when Scott asked me if I could talk, I thought, you know, it depends what is the subject, and to talk about 10x, that's a mathematical number. My background's software. I have 4 patents. That's supposed to mean something. And then he said, tell it to me in stories. I thought, Jesus, God, that's a lot to ask, Scott, but I think I can. So I'm going to break it up into 3 key components for you. And I want to start, though, with how did EO come into my life? So I'm coming into my 10th year. One of our largest resellers invited me to his 50th birthday party. We were sailing on a yacht from Miami to Bimini's in the Bahamas. And there was about 12 people, 8 of which were YPO or EO members. When that 5 days was over, I basically felt like if I didn't join, I probably would be cutting off my left arm and leaving it on the boat. Everybody explained to me what that forum experience was to them and how life-changing the network was and what it had done for their business. So I went home and did exactly what I was told and looked it up and submitted. The process was interesting because I had no peripheral knowledge. I was getting it from Washington, D.C. and Miami and a totally different group. So I applied, and there was what I felt was probably, a lot of financial scrutiny. I had to provide letters from my bank and letters from my accountant, and I worked tremendously hard on my portfolio, and I met a group of a board panel that interviewed me for my ethics and who I was as a person in Calgary that added value and legacy. Again, I have zero sort of peripheral knowledge of any of this, and I've never heard of EO or YPO or WPO. Splice Software, this is like almost 10 years ago. We're 4 years old, but it was my 3rd company with staff and benefits and that kind of thing. So I wasn't new to business, but I was brand new to EO. Maybe it's because I live in Calgary and we're a big oil and gas town, but Calgary has a lot of EO members. But anyways, that's how it happened. And so when I walked into this experience and I was accepted as a member, and they said, now go find your forum, I took that job incredibly seriously. I drafted up 3-page questionnaire and I interviewed the shit out of every moderator, not knowing that's not what every single other person did. And so when I arrived at EO, the important thing I'm trying to tell you is maybe by design or accident, I don't know, I felt tremendous ownership of that phrase that is own your experience. If you want a good experience, own it. If you want an average experience, own that. But whatever it is, own your experience. And I showed up to this organization with that desire to own my experience. Based on my life and the fact that I was a competitive soccer coach, I was running a startup, we were opening our 3rd office, I said, I am absolutely doing nothing else but forum and the odd activity. And I spent about 6 years in that place. And so my first part about how did I 10X is about my forum, because I'm one of those people that thinks it is fundamental, but it is actually not the only pillar. And so my first forum experience, and I don't know how else to do a good share other than EO Confidential. So I'll play that card with that immediate intimacy that we get as EO. The first happened for me was we received an interesting inbound offer. We weren't soliciting it. Now, those of you who know, software is that weird part of the world where we come up with our valuations based on revenue we might someday make, but we've definitely put on a pro forma that looks forward, and then we put the biggest multiplier on the math you can, and that is what we're worth. And then we emotionally attach to that number because all of our peers have, and anybody in their right mind would have exited for it. So I was certainly in a similar mindset and had a fixed number. In the middle of this process, we started into due diligence, and I'm, about 5 years into my forum experience. And in the end, we decided no, it just wasn't enough. It didn't match. Interestingly, not more than, about a year, just shy of a year later, we were named in an $8.6 million lawsuit. And never officially named, so I should be careful how I say this, but the whole goal of our customer was to get us to go down with this. This is directly around consent and opt-in management. If you ever want to learn something, learn it the hard way. We'd allowed an import that we probably should have validated more. And the good news for us in this story was our legal contracts held. But in that moment, my forum, having been through part of the due diligence of acquisition, understanding how it matched my other goals and values for my family, and understanding how quickly I reacted to defend and to create that safe harbor drew out so many insights that nobody else would have dared to speak to me of. It was such a horrifyingly personal story. I don't know if anybody else has come through it, but you come home and you're not sure if you're going to know how to, let alone keep your place at the lake. You're not even sure if you lose this, if you're going to make hockey fees. Like, this kind of a rumble and takedown is going to destroy the whole platform. And it was the most terrifying time, where having people that could honestly reflect back, 5+ years of forum sharing and of your goals and values and your wheel, right? And your life plan and your 5-year painted picture, and remind you that your worst of your worst is still going to put you in arm's reach of your overall life outcomes, but in the most tender of ways. And also to offer practical advice, and to have a needs and leads, and the value compared to what we paid our unbelievable legal team out of New York, which I can't say enough about. But the value that EO brought to me during that time was just so comparable with the very best firm we possibly could have buckled up with out of New York City. And I think that when you want to be able to be fully authentically yourself and go through the worst of times, you have to have marbles in the jar. You have to have tons of them, because in those moments you're going to take them out in handfuls, and you're going to need that to be an investment that's in the bank. And if you don't own your experience and put it in the bank that way, they can't be there for you that way. And I'm delighted to say that in the end we remained friends. I attended the birthday party of the founder, 86, of that company that was going to sue us for $8.6 million. And I remember them explaining to me, Tara, it wasn't personal. You just happen to have better insurance than we do. Just lots of all the stories we talked about in forum, I thought, are you joking about not personal? It could have been more personal. You were fucking with my whole life, because I think as entrepreneurs, we see boundaries, but we don't see boundaries, because I'm just me. I show up as me. And one of my favorite lines is, balance is for yoga. I don't balance my life. I just charge my battery. I do shit that makes me feel great, whether it's coaching soccer, designing a website, or trying to get a new patent. If it charges my battery, that's what I bring to the next place. And for me, EO was a place for me to calm down and really slow down and allow people to see me very imperfectly, and to stop trying so hard to put on the show that you were supposed to put on, and just be. And the beauty and the power that came through that just continues to ripple in a lifetime. And if those haven't been your moments, keep finding your forum, has been my experience. That was the fastest, the stalled experience flip you've ever seen. But that's my story. There's another, I guess, forum sharing for time, and I promised God I wouldn't blow it all up on. I also had a really crazy Karen mom moment related to Hockey Canada. My son plays Junior A, and it was a really terrifying moment where some very well-intentioned mothers that I would have considered my friendish, associate friend, kind of, colleague-ish friends, explained to their sons that they couldn't hang out with a girl because she shouldn't feel safe with them until she had her bathing, like she was properly dressed. They were coming up from a hot tub, and it blew up to this discussion where I basically really walked away feeling like I witnessed a rape culture discussion where we explained to the girl, go put your clothes on because you're not safe with these boys like this. And I nearly lost I fully Karen'd, like all the way, like all of it. And I presented to my forum, and it was definitely not business related, but it was everything. And I said, something's like fundamentally wrong, and I need to make my point. I need to change policy. I need to change learning, and I need to not sound like a fucking crazy Karen. Can you help me? And they did. They helped me really dial it back to something that was pragmatic and practical and applicable. And I'm 1.5 years into trying to roll out a program that is teaching that equality, because how we raise our boy heroes that play hockey and I have one of those kids changes the way we put men in this world. It changes the way we show up, and changes who's responsible for all safety around this. And there's just so much opportunity. And I had an opportunity to be far too emotionally attached, to be rational. And and I could have blown it up a lot of different ways. And quite frankly, based on the people involved, it could have blown up my kid's hockey career. And I thank my forum for letting me show up completely and perfectly in a desire to be human. So I thank forum. I'm going to echo the comments of other members and not go too far into it, but learning. I did attend the Singularity University event. I absolutely loved it. Connected with some professors that I've remained in touch with. One of my favorite concepts was a blockchain initiative, and this one came out of Singularity as well, but a blockchain initiative about registering as an earthling and recognizing that our geographic and political boundaries may not apply based on the way that money works today. And as soon as commerce is no longer based on a nation, it can change the planet. And then you look at some of these concepts that change your construct of the entire planet and how we want to interact and change the way we associate. They're just life-changing moments, and I've been able to inspire and connect many others from all over the world. We do work in Czechoslovakia, we do work in other areas, and I constantly connect everybody that I feel has a connection to it. So it's enabled me, I guess, to be more interesting, to show up at a dinner party with more value to add, and to truly connect people that are game changers, because they're people that you know, because they're one of us, and they're just another EOer that said, I'm going to choose to live my life with more give a shit. So I'm going to start wrapping it up here. I guess the last thing I'll leave it with, and then if there's room for questions, I'll take them. But my EO is an amazing place. Spend some time there. I did 4 years of running a water walk and drilling wells in Africa, and EO made it possible. So I wouldn't say are, I never like to call it a vehicle. Some people do. I like to say it's like a chassis, and then there's a garage with parts. So you got to build your vehicle because you own your own journey, but the parts are in the garage. And there's all kinds of good parts that you could attach and make it happen. So people are doing that all over the place. Don't just participate in EO. For God's sakes, launch one. These My EO events, they're unbelievable, and any of us can create a life-changing event for each other just by making it happen with those parts in the garage. So those are my 3 fundamentals. I say My EO, learning, global, all of it, and forum.
Fantastic. All right, we got time for one question. Anybody got a question for Tara?
What was the My EO water?
Let's say somebody asked, what was that My EO water thing in Africa?
Yeah, so I will proudly say we did it through We Day, that is taking a butt kicking across the country, unfortunately, very sadly. But they were an organization that has less than 13% to administration. So every year we would raise anywhere between $10,000 and $40,000 and donate it for that well to be drilled. We had Aquafina actually participate in finishing one of our wells. And we were in a situation where the one well enabled over 250 kids to go to school and change their life because they didn't have to walk for water as that daughter in the family. So we posted them, Calgary Herald covered a lot of them. And I believe that we inspired, every year between worst year was 32 kids, best year was over 100, but kids to believe that they could make things happen and that anything was possible. So EO is the vehicle, though, that created a way for us to organize it, plan it, provided the insurance to do a big walk in a public park and these kinds of things. So those little things matter a lot. And just by having, like I sort of said, those things in the garage, like insurance for the event, if you're not as risky as some, it really help.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again. Thanks so much, Tara. That was really great.
Thanks, guys.
It's a chassis and a garage and some parts. I like that. It's a great metaphor. So our next speaker, some of you will have seen before. He spoke here at our chapter maybe a couple of years ago. Spencer Sheinen's a Vancouver member. He's been quite influential actually across EO for one of his initiatives, but I won't steal any of his thunder. Just let him tell us his story.
Right on. Well, thank you, Scott. Really appreciate being here, and I appreciate this being an evening event. I had an all-day strategic planning session followed by a dinner recruitment for a new team member. So I got in just in time here. So I appreciate your flexibility there. And it's really hard for me to say no to anything like this, because this is like my number one passion right now, 10xing my life, 10xing anything I can do. And for me, a lot of that came from a program I did a few years ago called RLA, the Regional Leadership Academy. And it's available, I think I see Dave Ryan nodding. It's available to anyone that's been on a chapter board or higher in EO leadership. And I did my first one a few years ago with US West. And then I was on the committee that brought the first RLA Canada to, we did it in Kananaskis. And I'm supposed to be the RLA chair. It's actually supposed to be happening right now for this year for Canada. And for obvious reasons, we're not doing it. And RLA has literally changed my life over the last few years. And I want to tell you a couple specific things that has made that change for me. And the first is the concept of 86,400. It's a number that has really important meaning to me. And if you don't know what that number is, it's the number of seconds in a day. And you can only spend them and you can't buy more. That's it. And by the time I'm done, we'll have spent 600 of those seconds together. And I'm going to do everything I can to bring you value in those 600 seconds. And so it really got me thinking about, what am I doing with my 86,400? How am I spending them? Am I maximizing? Am I squeezing the most out of the days? Or am I just kind of like a passenger and letting them go by? And so the other tool that came to me out of RLA is it's like a pyramid. If you think about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we've all seen that with the 5 levels. This one has 4 levels. The base of the pyramid, the foundation, is physical well-being. The tier above that is emotional well-being. Above that is the intellectual well-being. And the top cap is spiritual well-being. And I really started thinking about each of those levels. Where am I? And started breaking them down as to, in order to maximize my 86,400 every day, is I have to be on my game with each one of those. And that started me on a journey. And I started with physical for 2 reasons. One, because it's on the bottom of the pyramid, and that's the foundation. And number 2, because, well, honestly, physical kind of comes easy for me. I've always been relatively athletic. I'm kind of healthy. So I kind of gravitate to it, which I'll come back to in a minute. But I kind of went a little bit crazy on it. I tested everything that could be tested. Blood tests. I did genome tests, hormone tests. I did gut microbiome tests. I did what's called a DEXA scan, which measures your body fat, your bone density, your lean muscle. And I actually learned a couple things that were quite shocking. For someone that most people would say is a super healthy guy, contextually, I'm 46, 47 on Saturday. So I'm getting up there, but I'm super fit. And yet I learned I have a condition called osteopenia, which is a precondition to osteoporosis. Now, think about the impact of the rest of my life if I develop into osteoporosis early in life. What a negative detractor that would have on every one of my 86,400 seconds going forward. But with the focus and attention, I've actually picked that up, and I'm literally on a course to reversing osteopenia, which you can do through specific action. So the first thing I did when looking at that pyramid, starting with the physical, I started by understanding where I am now. And then I set some annual goals. I set some long-term goals, broke them down, like none of this is magic, broke them down into milestones and then actions. And I look at those every single week and I tweak them every single week. Now, here's the thing that I did that's a little bit unique and different, also coming out of RLA. We were challenged. Warren Rustan was our facilitator. He's amazing. I think everybody here has experienced him in some way, shape, or form. Scott brought him into the One Canada conference last year. And he talked about, we all need to have at least 8 hours of strategic time in our calendars every week. And different people do it differently. I started from that day forward, I block out my Mondays. I do not take calls or meetings on Mondays. That is my day to work on my personal strategies and my business strategies. The personal strategies being the goals, milestones, and actions to help me maximize physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual, as well as business strategy, where I think hard about my business. What are the things that are going to move the needle the most for my business? Now, I get it, and I know And I promise that however busy you think you are or however hard you think you work, I promise you I am as busy and I work as hard. My day started at 6 a.m. yesterday, went till 8 p.m. I work long hours, I work hard. And it's like, how the hell am I gonna get a Monday blocked out? And let's be honest, some Mondays get taken up, but if I don't have that space, I can't correct my osteopenia, which is gonna lead to osteoporosis, which is gonna change the value of my 86.4 for the rest of my life. And so I spent about 2 years dialing in my physical. And I got to a point where for where I am and my age and my health, I'm actually really happy. And at the beginning of this year, I moved into the emotional zone, which I had a super interesting experience because the physical comes pretty natural to me. It's easy for me to eat well. It's easy for me to make decisions and good decisions. And I'll ask you, how is your decision around your physical? You know, what did you have for dinner? Is that nourishing you for tomorrow? Or is that going to be an energy detractor for you tomorrow, impacting the quality of your physical, impacting the quality of your energy, impacting the quality of your health? Are you sitting right now with an alcoholic drink or two, or are you choosing something that's going to nourish you? How are you going to maximize those 86,400 seconds? Not that there's anything wrong with a drink, as long as it's intentional, as opposed to just that habit. You know, what is the saying? Bad habits are easy to establish and hard to live with. Good habits are hard to establish, but easy to live with. What are those habits you're putting? Are you breaking out that time on Mondays or whatever your strategic time to look at your behaviors and your habits and your actions driving to the improving? So for me, I moved on to the emotional and I set 4 emotional intentions for this year. And I found it incredibly difficult because emotion doesn't come easy for me. One of my intentions was to live life in more color because I have a very flat affect. I don't have high highs, I don't have low lows. And so my journey this year is to how do I actually connect with emotions at a more human level as opposed to a more robotic level. I actually had an ex-girlfriend that called me the cyborg because I was always like on the level, right? And so I put in actions. I have a coach that literally helps me express my emotion. Of course, meditation's all the good morning routine stuff that we all know about. And I was doing that, and hopefully in a forum confidential environment, I had an incredible breakthrough on the Sunday of the Labor Day weekend a couple of weeks ago. I was feeling like I wasn't making progress, and we're all busy. I don't have time to slow down. And actually being connected to and using the guidance in one of the world's foremost experts, I actually had an incredible breakthrough using a small amount of psilocybin. No, I'm not on psilocybin now, and no, I'm not going to get you on a psilocybin, and no, I'm not suggesting you use it. But for me, in terms of my path, setting the goals, the actions, and escalating tasks to actually have me connect to an emotional level that I've never actually connected to before was absolutely game-changing. Now, I'm not going to go through the next 2 levels for time, but the point being is if I didn't have my intention set on my physical goals, milestones, and activities and review them on a weekly basis, I wouldn't be correcting osteopenia, which would impact the rest of my life. I wouldn't have connected emotionally, which would impact the rest of my 86,400. So I encourage all of you, think about those 86,400, think about those 4 steps, and encourage you to spend the time reviewing, do the work, do the work, do the work. It's game changing.
All right, who's got a question for Spencer? Everybody's just stunned. They don't know where.
How many chin-ups can you do?
I'm working on doing 50 chin-ups in 2 sets this year by the end of the year. I got up to about 14%. I've had some chronic back issues, so I'm back down to about 8%, working my way back up.
Wow, that's impressive.
You said pull-ups, right?
I didn't say that, but that's but I'm
no,
glad.
that was Bob Murray said that, I think. Pull-ups, yeah.
So you're a runner, so you know if you have osteoporosis, you can ride bikes, right? I don't know if you knew that.
I have a Zwift trainer next to me, so I regularly, as part of my health, I am on my bike, and I even do my management meetings while I'm riding.
Great. Awesome. So can you briefly tell us what you think the most, other than RLA, what do you think the biggest impact? Actually, can you tell us about the One Conversation initiative? I was kind of thinking you might right there.
So One Conversation was a few years ago when I was the chapter president in Vancouver, and we were picking themes for the year. And through a bit of a long story, which I won't mention, that the idea came up for One Conversation, which is that one conversation can change your life. And if we approach each conversations with the idea that, you know, you don't know whether it's going to be a forum meeting, Tara was mentioning forum meetings, a speaker, a learning event, just a conversation, meeting someone at a conference that could lead to a connection. One conversation can change your life. And kind of within EO, there's only one, it only takes one conversation to make the whole year's dues worthwhile. It only takes one conversation to potentially change your life. For me, RLA was a big part of that. Being part of leadership on the chapter board as chapter president. I'm now on the regional council. I'm on global committees. That's changed my life because of the connections and the learning. I'm also the leadership director for Canada. If anybody's interested in joining regional or global type committees or stuff, please reach out to me. I'm happy to explain that to you a little bit more. But one conversation can change your life. And if you set the intention that every time you go into a conversation, that conversation might change your life, or you might be the one conversation for the other person that changes their life.
Awesome. Well, that's a fantastic note to finish up on, Spencer. Thank you so much for being with us. We totally appreciate it. Yeah, I know. I've been texting with him. Dan's actually our other potential speaker is in forum. He can't break out. So guess what? We're going to end it up with Spencer. But before you get back to chatting, let me tell you a little bit. Somewhere, if you find a page that looks like this in your hymn book here, then you'll find you'll find an outline of the learning calendar for this year. Some of these events are going to get refined a little. And you'll notice that we haven't given you dates exactly or venues, but next month, I want to just tell you what's coming up in the next couple of months, just so you have it in your minds. We're hoping to specify a single venue to have our events in, so we don't have to dick around with AV every time in different places. And I'm hopeful I'll be able to pull it off to have it at the Starfish office. We have a new facility with a lot of space, so we should be able to set up there, but I still have to run it through my safety committee, so I can't promise. But we'll find that we'll have a great spot in Victoria where we can have these events. So next month, the plan is to have Tammy Dewar. And you maybe know Tammy. She's a Victorian. She and her husband have been teaching at Royal Roads for 20 years. They're probably the most popular speakers in the program there. And what they teach about is leadership development. So they've taken the biggest things that they've learned over 20 years that resonated the most with the business students in Royal Roads, and they're going to condense that down to a program of very useful tactics for how do you develop your company. Because it turns out you're not going to be the one who actually makes all the decisions, takes your company to the next level. You're actually just going to develop people, and they're going to be the ones that take it to the next level. How do you get the people you got and get it to that spot? I've been mulling over that problem for a while, because of course that's kind of the biggest thing in leadership, right? You're not going to micromanage your way to success, but your people aren't at that spot where they can take it to the next level. What do you do? Fire them all and get all new ones, or do you try to develop the ones that have potential? So just going to be talking about really useful tactics for how to do that in your company. November. We're planning to do an economics event. So we have, at this point, we've confirmed Jeff Booth. You may recall Jeff as a speaker. We actually had it in the past, running a company called Build Direct, which he's out of that company now. He's written a book called The Price of Tomorrow, which is about inflation. But I'd also like to add a economist to that event, hopefully from one of the banks. That will be able to tell us, based on their tea leaf reading and crystal ball gazing, what should we really expect over the next, or some scenarios and what they might mean for us as we try to guess how to do strategy for our companies. And then in December, we're going to actually do a dine around for a small group. So you'll be with 3 couples, and you'll basically make the rounds of different venues. We haven't yet finalized whether they're in people's homes or if they're in restaurants, but you won't be highly socially exposed, but you'll be able to, if you can expand your bubble just a little bit, you can have a really fun experience and still be quite safe. So that's what we're hoping to pull off for the balance of this year. And in addition, as I mentioned earlier, every chapter in Canada has promised to hold an event, sort of like this, where they have a speaker and other chapters can watch it. So we're going to have access to some of that as well. So I'll be sharing those things with you as they come around. And with that, I would like to draw a close to our very first successful hybrid event. Thank you.